There's this artist that I love on Instagram called Den Tree Dolls. They recently got 10K followers, which congratulations by the way, and decided to have a giveaway for that. I decided that it sounded like fun, so I decided to participate. She wants us to do fan art of one of her dolls, and I decided to go with this one. This doll in particular has always stood out to me because it was the first I've seen of hers, and it was the one who spoke to me. I love its colors and just its theme. It's just very pretty and elegant. I decided to use my own handmade watercolors for this process. Because of this, I decided the best thing to do was to use black paper. It just shows up the best on it. For the sketch here, I decided to make it pretty stylized, keep it close to the style of the doll, which is kind of chibi, cute, and overall kind of Mori Girl Faye-esque. I think that's kind of what drew me to these dolls in the first place, is I love the Faye fawn look. I am sketching here with the Pilot Color Eno mechanical pencil. I like it because it shows up on colored paper, but also it's fully erasable, so it's super nice. The first color I use here is Amethyst from my Jeweled Bows set. It is a mica-free paint and it's just so sparkly. The second color is Something Wicked from my Halloween palette set. While the doll itself is mostly just one color, it has layers, which is why it appears like different shades of purple. Because of this, I had to find other ways to differentiate between the levels of purple. My initial color swatch here was way too orange, so I had to mix it with a red to get it more coppery. So I used a mix of Pumpkin Spice and Blood Moon, which are both also from the Halloween palette set. I did a similar thing here with Cobweb and Sapphire to try to get the right color for the horns, which is this bluish, blackish gray. I layer other colors as well, but those were the two that just really made it pop. The color I used here is Rosebud from my Elysian Spring set. It's perfect because it's this pink with this blue color shift, which gives it the perfect shade of purple. I use this for highlights in the hair as well as the clothes here. Something I should mention is I'm painting really small. I'm using a 0 round brush, the smallest kind of brushes you can to get all the little details and have full control here. Although I will be switching here in a bit to a different sized brush, you'll see. Between this and an angled brush, they are my go-to brushes for painting. So the original design didn't have a basket, but I decided to give this one a basket for a prop because it felt weird to have her just as a static pose. I wanted to have her doing something, so why not collect these little moonflowers in the middle of an autumn night? Ah yes, and here's the angled brush I was talking about. Switching back to a small round brush to go around the feet, that way I don't overlap the color. And of course playing with shadow. I'm using Nightlife as my main shadow here, which is from my Cyberpunk set. It is also fluorescent, but I don't really show that off here. In doing grass, hair, and fur, I tried to use tapering lines with a flick of the wrist as I go up. Granted, I'm not as good at it in the left side because I'm working on my non-dominant side, reaching over the paper, but I do my best. I wanted her to be silhouetted by trees like a little storybook cover, which also is a great way to use the space I've been given, so that way it stays a standard size paper and I don't have to trim it down. I guess that's the downside of working so small, is that there tends to be a bit of empty space that I have to use. So this is actually a technique I've never used before, getting the paper wet as the outline of the shape and then filling it with multiple colors so they bleed into each other. I saw this from the letter writing side of TikTok, the people who are doing calligraphy. They do this all the time, and I wanted to figure out how to best use it for illustration reasons, and I think I did a great job. I think there's one or two flowers that got a little dry, so I had to almost overdo it with the water later. These trees felt lonely, so I decided to give them some beautiful little vines reaching up into the skies. It also was a great way to add the base colors back into these silver trees. Time to use an even smaller brush to do the tiniest little details on the face and the clothes. I like to buy those brushes that are normally used for tiny nail art or maybe miniatures, whatever I can get my hands on, just to get these itty bitty little details. Ah yes, the white gel pen, every illustrator's best friend. Colored pencil time to deepen the shadows and add more highlights. So these highlights are not with a white, but with a very light blue. It just makes sure that it isn't too striking. This purple was an accident. I thought it was going to be darker than it was, but I ended up liking how it looked anyways. So the dolls that Den Tree Dolls makes have 3D elements all scattered throughout. Because of this, I decided I wanted to add some 3D elements as well, give it a little bit of extra pop, but that required me to change the color of some of these charms. I used a mix of enamel paint, the kind of army painter stuff that you use for miniatures, as well as Pibio paints, which I'm not quite sure what kind of paint it is, but I think it's like a resin-based paint. Either way, I had a lot of fun just figuring out what colors matched what I wanted. This one I actually added some of the rosebud powder that I use for my handmade watercolors to get the exact kind of color highlight that I wanted. I added the paint that I had left to add details to her clothing, flowers in the basket, and some extra highlights just to make it pop. Glossy Accents is my glue of choice for gluing things down, although I think E6000 would have probably worked a little better for some of these. Either way, it tends to dry quickly and is super useful for doing things like beads. I used a mix of micro beads and seed beads to get these little ropey details that she adds, the string art I think it's called, but it was kind of a pain in the ass. It didn't stop me from doing it, but goodness gracious, it took a lot longer than it looks like here, and I had a few false starts with things that ended up looking bigger than I wanted, and picking out beads that were just the right color, stuff like that. Time to add the finishing touches. And the final reveal. And just so you can see how shiny this is, thank you so much for watching, and make sure to check out Den Tree Doll and their work. And if you liked my work, make sure to check out my website at ronorthillustrations.org. Bye!